Hello everyone, this is Utage, working as Assistant Professor in Mechanical Engineering Department, Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. So today we'll be discussing about slip gauges. What are slip gauges? Learning outcomes. At the end of this video lecture, students will be able to explain about slip gauges, ringing of slip gauges. The following contents will be discussed in this particular video lecture. Slip gauges, applications of slip gauges, ringing of slip gauges, classification of slip gauges, and the different sets of slip gauges. Slip gauges. So these are the gauge blocks which are universally accepted and standard of length in industry. These were introduced by Johansson, a Swedish engineer, and also called as Johansson gauges. Slip gauges are rectangular blocks of high grade steel with exceptionally close tolerances. These blocks are suitably hardened throughout to ensure maximum resistance to wear. They are then stabilized by heating and cooling successfully in stages so that hardening stresses are removed. After being hardened, and they are carefully finished by high grade lapping to high degree of finish, flatness, accuracy. For successful use of slip gauges, their working faces are made truly flat and parallel. A slip gauge is shown in figure. Slip gauges are also made from tungsten carbide, which is extremely hard and wear resistance. The cross section of these gauges are 9 mm into 30 mm for sizes up to 10 mm and 9 mm into 35 mm for larger sizes. Any two slip gauges, when perfectly clean, may be rung together. The dimensions are permanently marked on one of the measuring faces of gauge blocks. Applications of slip gauges. Slip gauges are used for direct, precise measurement where accuracy of the workpiece demands it. Whenever I want the accurate value, then I can use the slip gauges. Slip gauges are also used for checking accuracy of vernier calipers, micrometers, and such other measuring instruments. Setting up a micrometer to a specific dimensions. Slip gauges are also used for measuring angle of workpiece and also for angular setting in conjunction with the sine bar. They are also used to check gap between parallel locations such as in gap gauges or between two mating parts. Ringing of slip gauges. If two slip gauges are forced against each other on measuring faces, because of contact pressure, gauges stick together and considerable force is required to separate these blocks. This is known as ringing of slip gauges. The success of precision instruments by slip gauges depends on the phenomenon of ringing. The slip gauges are rung together by hand through a combined sliding and twisting motion. The gap between two rung slips is only of the order of 0.00635 microns, which is a negligible value. Procedure for ringing. Before using, the slip gauges are cleaned by using a lint-free cloth, a leather, or a cleansing tissue. One slip gauge is then oscillated lightly over the other gauge with a light pressure. In this way, one gauge is then placed at 90 degree to other by using light pressure, and then it is rotated until the blocks are brought in one line. So this is the way. First we are placing both the slip gauges here, okay, and then we are rotating by oscillating it by 90 degree, and here ringing phenomena takes place. So in this way, air is expelled out from between the gauge faces, causing the gauge blocks to adhere. The adhesion is caused partly by molecular attraction and partly by atmospheric pressure. When two gauges are rung in this manner, is exactly the sum of their individual dimensions. The rung gauge can be handled as a unit without the need for clamping all the pieces together. Classification of slip gauges. So there are different types of gauge blocks up to 90 mm in length based on the application as follows. First one, grade 2. Grade 2 gauge blocks are workshop grade for rough checks. They are used for preliminary setting up of components where production tolerances are relatively wide, for positioning milling cutters and checking mechanical widths. Grade 1. Grade 1 gauge blocks are used for more precise work such as setting up of sign bars, checking gap gauges, and setting dial indicators to 0. Grade 0. These are inspection grade gauge blocks used in tool room and inspection department for high accuracy work. Grade 00. These gauges are placed in the standard room and used for highest precision work such as checking grade 1 and grade 2 slip gauges. Calibration grade. This is a special grade with the actual size of the slips calibrated on a special chart supplied with a set. Here, the chart must be referred while making up the dimension. The following sets of slip gauges used generally are M45. Here M stands for metric and 45 stands for the number of pieces in that set, or total number of pieces in that particular set. So here the range is from 1.001 to 1.009 mm, and the step is 0.001, and total number of pieces in that range are 9 pieces. Then there is 1.01 to 1.09, that is in the step of 0.01. So again there is a 9 pieces, and 1.1 to 1.9 in the step of 0.1. Total number of pieces is again 9. Then 1 to 9 in the step of 1 mm, so 9 pieces are there, and 10 to 90, 10 mm to 90 mm in the step of 10 mm, there are 9 pieces. So total pieces are 45. So that's why it is called a M45 set. So depending on the application, or they have mentioned your which gauge, which set you have to use, you have to form that required dimension. M83. Again M83, 80 here M stands for metric and 83 stands for total number of pieces in that particular set. Here the range is 1.005. There's only one slip gauge of 1.005 mm, whereas in M45 there was 1.001 to 1.009. So there's only one piece, and then here the range is 1.01 to 49 mm. In the step of 0.01, there are totally 49 pieces. And then 1.6 to 1.9. In the step of 0.1, 4 pieces. And then 0.5 to 9.5. In the step of 0.5, and 19 pieces are there. Then there is 10 to 100 total in the step of 10 mm, and 10 pieces are there, so total it is 83. Now pause this video for a few seconds and try to write answer to the following question. 1.005 mm slip gauge is present in which sets? M45, M87, or all of the above? Probably you have wrote answer to the following question. These are the following references. Thank you.